Hello and welcome to Audionautic Deep Space Network, episode 112. This is the Independent Musician's Guide to Production and Promotion. And this week, we've got some very interesting news from Apple on the music production front. There's a massive update coming to Logic Pro that's adding stem separation, more session players. And if you're not familiar with the session players in Logic, we'll talk about that soon. AI and quite a bit more. So we'll be talking all about that. It's not out yet, so we're looking at what's coming, and then once it's out, I'll take you through it in I think a week. I think it's like May 13th. Curtis can correct me in a second.
Monday.
Yeah, May 13th. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, Curtis. Then we'll discuss the finishing line for a track and ways to get through the struggle of that last 10% or whatever number, but basically calling a track done. My name is Sun Warper, and with me today is Eon Lake. How are you, my friend?
Hello. I'm good.
Hello.
Yeah,
He's back.
I'm back.
Yeah, you're back. We missed you, buddy.
Yeah, likewise. I might still sound a little bit. I might be coughing a fair bit, but yeah, I'm
That's
all
what
right.
riding the mutes for, man. That's I
Yep.
do it all the time. I'm gonna do it right now. See,
There we go. That's how it's done, like a
Yeah.
pro.
It's breaking the fourth wall right there, isn't it?
what you been up to, man? Besides getting over being sick?
What have I been up to? In my sick haze, I've been too lazy to do any Eurorack stuff, so I've been doing loads of it in software instead.
Ah.
So
Mm.
I couldn't be
I feel
bothered
like
to-
I'm getting deja vu because didn't you say that the last time you were on that you were
I
using
said I was
software?
going to have a go. I bought braids, the mutable instruments braids in Soft Tubes modular, and I'd never used it. It was something that I'd bought and never used. And I've got Platts, the newer one, in my hardware rig. So I thought I'd have an experiment, and man, some crazy sounds, some good sounds. So yeah,
What software are you using again? Is it VCV Rack?
Soft tube.
Soft Tube modular.
Soft Tube. That's right. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. I gotta check out one of those, but it's like I don't want to go down that modular rabbit hole. I'm afraid.
It's good. It comes with you get loads of dope for modules as standard, but there are a few 4MS and mutable instruments. And what's the other one? And there's some IntelliGel and Instruo stuff as well that you can use in it.
You know, Eon, like I think the first time you were on one of the previous incarnations of Audionautic, you were on to talk modular, and that's been a few years. Maybe it's time we have another talk about that at some point.
Maybe soon.
Yeah, maybe soon. Yeah, we'll see. What's that? Well, let's leave it on that cryptic note. And
Well, hang on, no, that's not. Hang on a sec, no, because I just want a little thing. Because I've just bought a new Mac, and I want a stick of a soft, and dedicate it to soft synth modular. Why that and not VC Rack, for example? Just quickly before we move on.
It looks nicer. It's easier to use. I just, you know how on VCV Rack forums you get there's always somebody posting about how do you get sound in and out of this thing, and everybody's getting frustrated because there are a million posts on it and probably a sticky in the forums. I just didn't gel with it immediately. Whereas the Soft Tube one, although it's not cheap, I don't think. It's a while ago now, so I can't really remember, but it's just easy to use. It just works, right? And it looks good.
is VCV the one that's free, or am I just
They have
completely
It's
wrong?
never
free
free
and
version.
paid, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if you wanted to put it as a VST in your DAW, for example, you have to pay for it. And I think there's other modules and stuff as well.
I
There's
see.
a lot of them. I've got to make a decision. So maybe it is worth us having an episode.
Oh,
in the next,
it's
in the
coming.
coming
That's
weeks.
why I was trying to leave it
Yeah.
on a cryptic note, but you've just completely ruined that.
Yay!
I'm joking, but I was going to throw it over to you anyways before you hijack the conversation. But also with me today is my Audionautic co-pilot, and it's true. He's now looking back retroactively. He said before we went live, he's like, I'm in a chatty mood because I was saying, should we cut the intro, do this, and he's in a chatty mood. We just saw that. So what's up, Curtis? What are you up to?
Mate, I've been all over the place. I've been in Budapest, and then I was on a golf course, and it was mental. I've been playing around with just having the laptop and earbuds, mixing on earbuds this week because I've been on trains and I've been traveling lots. And you know how we always do like the car tests and things like that, and how we always do that. I've been like what happens if you skip that part and you just mix on earbuds, for example? Turns out it's not a very good mix, so you have to go back and redo it. But it's good to kind of sit and make some beats on the train. It's good fun.
You gotta reference on like 3 different, like a crappy earphone or phone, then a decent thing, and then like your monitors and maybe even more. But yeah, that's the way to do it. Earphone mixing. There you go, man.
Like you see it, like I see. I mean, it's good for laying stuff down, right? It's good. I've noticed that it's good for like you just have the laptop and you're playing on the keyboard, for example. You're making some beats and stuff. You don't have all the gear, and you might be traveling somewhere. You might be in a taxi or you might be in a train or whatever. Obviously, when it gets to the mixing stages, you want something a little bit different in that regard. But there is something kind of liberating at this stage of just having a pair of earbuds and say your laptop or a flip sample or something, and just that, and working with that is lovely. I'm very happy with that right now.
No, dude, I hear you, because I've been making lots of music just on Koala on my phone at night with the phone speaker. And then I like a couple weeks back on my YouTube, I did a beat set of those jams, like some of the jams that I was making. The first time I was playing with my headphones and then listening back, I was like, oh my God, the bass is just terrible. And I had to fix it and do all that. But so, yeah, I mean, it's nice to do it for the convenience, but yeah, you kind of have to account for the frequency drift that you're like lacking.
Exactly. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. What you been doing, brother? I didn't see you Monday. We didn't have our weekly meet. We had to do it remote this week. So what's been going on with you?
Nothing, man. I haven't had time for anything. I've done a little bit of guitar through the SP in the little mini studio I made. I've basically accepted that for probably the foreseeable future. My setup is minimalism. It's like a piece of gear and the computer and a MIDI controller. But I've been testing out, and I'm gonna go live for my channel members on Saturday, Overbridge with the Electron.
Oh,
And that's been really interesting with the Digitact, because you can get a separate audio track. So you get all 8 tracks, like all 8 tracks of the Digi, and then an audio track. And so I have the guitar running through it. So the audio track can have guitar rig, and then I can just
nice.
like play, but I can't record the guitar rig into the Digi if I want to. I run into like routing issues, because you kind of have to choose which routing is best. Do I want the output to be like the audio interface or the computer so that I can hear it without headphones, or do I want the output to be the Digi, and then like I can't record that one? It's just, that's kind of an issue with all these like all these USB routings. You always kind of have to make a concession with where you want to place like the final output and things. I run into it all the time with the SP as well. But having the 8 tracks separate, well, 9 if you count the audio track, and 10 really, because the bus, you can get the bus effects as their own as well. It makes a big difference, because now I can sidechain in the DAW rather than doing some sidechain tricks and the Digi and all that. It's interesting. I'm looking forward to diving more into that.
That's very cool. And that's for your channel subscribers, isn't it? Or as opposed to just anyone in general.
Yeah, so it's gonna be, the plan is, because I'm still checking my streaming like latency and stuff, because that last live stream I did publicly had all these issues of like frame drops and stuff like that, and I had to take it down, edit it, and then post it. So my plan is do it I'm gonna test it beforehand, and I did test it last night and it was better, but test this one basically soft relaunch of the live stream for members, and then if all goes well, I'm going to edit it down and the next day release it as a video for everybody. Smiling Air says using a mixer on DAWless is cheating. Oh, well, I may have misspoke if I said DAWless. I wasn't saying this is a DAWless setup. This is just a hybrid setup. And honestly, hybrid, I feel like, is usually the way to go. And this just makes, basically, I can take a loop, just record Logic as I'm just messing with the Digi. And then I have everything, and I can just sample chop it, do all that. If I want to, I could throw it into the SP or anything. So yeah, I don't like putting a limitation on it like DAWless or this. I love the DAWless setup, but I can't get out here right now. So this is a nice little middle ground for me.
Who do we have in the chat today?
Well, we have quite a few patrons. I was going to bring that up. Thank you, my friend. We've got Bendu. What is going on? It sounds like he's a bit busy working, but Ben, always happy to have you. We've got Abby. How are you? Also working, but you're here. We're happy to have you. Shady is here. What's going on, everybody? What's going on? And Smiling Airs is also here. And how are you, everybody? Let us know what you've been up to this week. But yeah, let's get, and I should say real quick, patrons, thank you for your support. You help keep us going. If you want to help support the show, patreon.com/audionautic. We'll talk about everything you get a little bit later. Jan Lake has his Audionautic shirt on. Nice. But let's talk about this Logic Pro update, because we do have 2 Logic Pro users. I don't feel so outnumbered today. We have 2 Logic Pro users, and there's a lot coming with this. So, Curtis, do you want to... do we have a link? We have a link, right? Sorry, it's been a
I'll bring
crazy
up the
day.
link.
Yeah, pop that link
I'll
up
bring
and
up the
we'll
link.
take a look.
You tell us why you're so excited. What's going on with it? Tell us what's going down. Oh, who's
What?
by the way? Just before you do,
Yeah.
who's the other Logic Pro user?
Jan Lake.
Yeah, fair play. I keep forgetting that. Fair play.
Don't be fooled by his
Okay.
modular setup. He does use Logic to some degree.
Fair play.
Yeah, I do some mastering on it sometimes as well.
Yeah, have you tried the AI mastering?
No.
Yeah, I was telling Curtis, as somebody that does master, I was surprised it's halfway decent. I would never use it for like a proper release, but it's not too bad. You get quite a lot of control on things and stuff. And like if you're making just a master for a social media post or something, it's not too bad. I was surprised because I don't usually vibe with AI masters. But anyways, that's kind of a preamble because they are adding quite a bit of AI. So let me get this screen shared. And let's start with the biggest one is they're adding... Well, actually, the biggest thing is the fact that if you own Logic,
it's free.
it's free.
Hmm,
So
that's
I
good.
like that because we've talked to Ableton with updates, and it gets quite costly to some degree and things like that. So if you don't own Logic, this is $199, same price. It hasn't changed, but it's Logic 11 now, not Logic Pro X or 10, whatever you want to call it. So there's also Logic Pro for iPad 2. I've never used the iPad one because it's a subscription model and I don't like that. But they're adding more session players. So we've talked before about the drummer that's been in Logic for quite a bit, where you can set... Is anybody getting an echo? I just caught an echo of myself. No? Okay, good. It throws me off when I hear myself. But anyways, it's an AI-driven band, basically. So the drummer was the first one. You can set a couple of parameters. Here you're seeing it. Let me zoom in on that real quick. So that's the bass. That's one of the new ones. So you basically set parameters and key and things like that, and it just makes like a jam, and then you can kind of control the nuance of it. The drummer is really intuitive. I use it all the time to start. I sample it, throw it in the SP or something, chop it up. So I think it's interesting. There's a keyboard player now and a bass player. So if you're a guitarist or something, you can now add some of this. Or if you're a sample-based artist, this would be really cool to get what should be copyright free or largely, sounds that you can sample and chop up and things like that. Yeah, like as a Logic user, do you use Drummer? That's Drummer. I love Drummer. It looks like it's getting...
I have done a few times, yeah. It always surprised me there wasn't a way you could get it to speed up on fills and stuff.
Well, so what I do is I export it and then just use the what's it called? The time shift. You can shrink and enlarge like a track or something. But yeah, I wish they'd do that. But there's some really cool things. You can have it follow a track and it analyzes like the sound of the track, like the transients, and it will make the kick and snare kind of based on those transients. So there's really interesting ways you can use it. And I'm excited to see what they add. They're saying these are AI driven. And I mean, I'm sure it is, but I wonder how much are they just trying to capitalize on the AI craze by kind of like,
Yeah. We'll be having it on our toast in the morning soon, won't we?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
AI jam.
Yeah. Curtis, I know you're not really familiar with this, but what do you think about these session players just from your cursory viewing of it?
I think it's cool. I think bringing in these baselines of that's me in full screen. I think bringing in these baselines of no pun intended of what you can do with production, having something at your disposal where like you go into it and you're introduced to it and you don't really have to think about it. It's a good place to start. Like it's a good inspiration tool, and also getting people into music production in the first instance. It's a very accessible DAW. It's a low barrier to entry. It's relatively easy. It's classic. It's based off old studio stuff. So like, yeah, dope in that regard.
I'm glad you always think in that teacher aspect of like new beginnings and starting and stuff. Cause I view this in the sampling domain, like, oh, I mean, I play all these instruments and stuff, but if I need something quick, or if I just need to get, if I have writer's block, right, and need to just get something down, I can kind of start and then sample it or something. But it's also an idea, if you're just learning an instrument or something like that, you can have these parts that you add on top, and you can kind of make a full band sound or something. So I'm glad you always think in that way, Curtis. It's good that that's there.
That's exactly it, because I've never really looked at these things as being something that I would put in a track as they are. You know, I have used them for backing tracks to like you say, to practice to. And I have messed about with them, chopped them up, put them through weird effects. I don't know, made a loop that I could then sample and reuse. I don't really see them as something that you could put in your track. Or if you did, then I don't know, you're kind of not writing the music to a certain extent. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, is there any difference there
Controversial.
between sampling too? You know?
Yeah, because I think with sampling, there's a bit of curating and of like, you know,
Yeah.
manipulation, audio manipulation, and know what you want to do. But yeah, I mean, very useful for a lot of applications, but maybe not for sticking in my tracks anyway.
I hear you. No, I mean, I totally get that. Like when I use Drummer, it's either as an addition to the drums I already have to kind of get more variation or something, or I will just sample it, splice it, and, you know, add a bunch of effects to get a thicker drum sound or something like that. I'm curious once these come out to kind of see how intuitive it is, how you can kind of control like the chord progression. Cause, you know, we use a lot of like modal chords and things like that. And that's probably might trip it up. I don't know, but it'll be interesting to see how kind of it works in this way and all of that. Really quickly from Smiling Airs in the chat, the AI term is getting stained from the sourcing issue. They might need labels soon to quality control between brands, like food has to declare additives. Yeah, it's kind of like I was saying, it's the buzzword, so everyone's trying to use it. And I don't recall, maybe I'm wrong, but when Drummer came out, I don't remember them saying it's like an AI drummer. But yeah,
They didn't. As far as I'm aware, they didn't do that.
Yeah, and again, I might be wrong. Someone can correct us in the chat or in the what's it called, the comments if you're watching back. Let's move on though, because what is next, I think, is even bigger, maybe at least in our domain, and that is internal stem splitter or stem separation. So allowing the separation of mixed audio recordings into, it sounds like it's also doing the 4 drums, bass, vocals, and other. And I love how other is like the biggest one. All the melody instruments, all the instruments are just, oh, it's other. Come on, guys.
It makes me wonder how the musician stereotypes would fit with other.
Yeah.
What is an other player?
Yeah. So this one is very interesting. So here we've got it. That's on the iPad. I think it's Logic Pro for iPad 2 now. But this is huge. I mean, again, $200 to buy Logic, but if you already own it, it's a free upgrade to get all of this stuff. I mean, we've talked before. We've done some shootouts or comparisons between MPC stems, which recently launched. What is it? FL Studio, Koala Sampler, and previously we've done some about Serato and Rip X. And we found FL Studio to be the winner of the 3 we did recently in the shootout of MPC, FL, and Koala. That was some quality right there, stem separation. How much is FL Studio, Curtis, to purchase?
It's a good question. I think we did this when we were on the live. I got mine for 200. I think I got mine for 200, and that was before it. I'm a bit of a FL Studio hipster in that regard, but you can get it for. Hang on. I don't want to try it for free. I want to buy it.
In the interim, while you look that up, I'm just going to say, once this comes out, we're going to do another stem comparison just with FL and Logic, because we personally found FL to be the cleanest in terms of stem separation. So we want to compare Logic's with FL. If you do want us to compare with MPC or anything like that, let us know. But we did that in a previous episode. We'll post the link after if you want to check it out. FCC, one of our label mates, is in the chat. What's going on, FCC? How are you? We've also got Smiling Airs coming through about the pricing. $200 for producer edition, roughly. Thank you, Smiling Airs.
Yeah,
appreciate that. Yeah, it's $250. Curtis is saying too. So we're going to do a comparison once this comes out, and I'll also try to get some examples and things like that of these session players. I think it comes out on Monday and we go live on Wednesdays, but don't get a lot of time in the studio these days, but I can do it on my laptop. So I'll try to get some video and things like that for next Wednesday for this coming Wednesday show. So we'll definitely do the stem separation and a little bit on the session players. Gentlemen, is there anything about the stem splitter you want to talk about before we go to one of the last things I want to discuss that's added? Eon Lake, are you excited by it? I mean, I know it's not really your thing, but
yeah, that's what I was thinking. This isn't really my thing. I
Yeah.
was thinking about the updates to Logic, and I'm still thinking sometimes about having another door just so that if I have a system failure of some kind, I can still work in a way. But a lot of the things that they're bringing into at the moment, it's good. It is good stuff. It's just not necessarily stuff I'm going to use personally. But
Yeah.
horses for courses. And doors are things that end up being all things to all people. And I've had my updates with like CV integration and stuff like that, and the things that I wanted. So I don't mind.
I agree. I mean, these things are a bit more up my alleys, but I know what you're saying, and that's kind of the beauty of the DAWs is that it's kind of usable in any instance. Curtis, could you scroll up really quick on the screen? The text above it where it talks about stem splitter, just right above. That's it, right there.
Much they don't do these days, is there?
Yeah, that's true. I just want to mention really quick the way they're billing this is, and maybe this is for copyright, to not give ideas, but they're billing this as basically recovering ideas you record, like on, let's say, voice memos, or if you record demos, or you find your old cassette recordings or old stereo 2 tracks of songs, or let's say the DAW setup, like what I use. If you have these jams where you want to split it, they're kind of billing it like, oh, now you can split it. And I also want to add that it seems like a lot of this stuff, I gotta check. This update might be exclusive to the M chips, the M2, M1, M3, and I think they just announced an M4 or something. But a lot of these things are saying they're powered by AI and the M series chips. So I got to double check. It might only be for the update, might only be for that. I will check later. This just came out, so we're just going over it. But I find it interesting that their whole billing of the stem separation is for recovering your own audio ideas and things like that. Am I just reading into it a bit much, or do you think this is like a CYA?
It's probably a bit of both, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think they can't go ahead and say, "Hey, why don't you illegally split stems?" They can't do that. We all
what if it was like, now you can split stems from vinyl?
Exactly. Like they're not going to do that. It's like everyone knows what it's going to be used for, but they can't market it as that. And I mean, that's fair enough. It's fair enough. It doesn't mean we're not going to do it. I think the notion of stem separation and making that more accessible to people is probably, for me at least, it's the most interesting thing. Not just because I enjoy splitting stems and working with them, but I also think the democratization of sound is really cool. The idea that anyone can take anything and sampling becomes so much more accessible to anyone. That is, that's for me at least in the 21st century. I find that quite groundbreaking in the sense now it's almost like a door opening to the notion of, I always bang on about this, about the reforming of copyright law and things like that. Like that kind of, you're teasing that through and allowing that through, and that's exciting for me.
Yeah, definitely. Let me go through a couple of comments before we talk about the last big thing that they're adding, if we want to call it a big update. But FCC says, been AWOL for a while, work and illness bringing me down for the past month, but getting back into things finally. Well, FCC, it sounds like things are on the mend. We're happy to hear that, and we're always happy to have you here. So welcome. Thanks for joining us. He's got a remix to finish tonight. I think I know what remix that is. Several of you have those that are due soon, I think. We've also got Asaph in the chat. How are you? How's it going? Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Okay, Curtis, if you don't mind sharing the screen one more time, there's one last big thing that they're talking about in this update, and that is Chroma Glow. Now, there's a reverb. I can't remember if it's Chroma Verb. I use that all the time. I'm not sure if that's technically one of these AI ones that they have, but Chroma Glow it basically sounds like a saturator. So again, they're saying leveraging AI and the power of the M series. They're adding the most revered studio hardware. Users can dial in the perfect tone with 5 different saturation styles to add ultra realistic warmth, presence, and punch to any track. They can also choose from modern clean sounds, nostalgic vintage warmth, or more extreme styles that can be shaped and modeled to taste. So this one I really want to see in action because
Hmm.
it kind of sounds like it's a saturator, but then of course they're hyping it up. So I just want to see really what it does. And looking at it, I mean, you can see model, analog, preamp. What is that? Style, colorful. You can up the drive and things like that. It
Hmm.
seems a bit similar to Chroma Verb in the UI and stuff, though. This is the iPad one, but I'm interested to see what it does really beyond just the PR speak.
Hmm.
Another saturator. It's good.
See,
There's
that's
not
what
enough saturation plugins in the world. You know what I mean?
I saw someone comment like, "Oh, Logic is finally adding a saturator after 10 years or something." And yeah, I've always wondered because when I first started learning about saturators, I was like looking for because Logic pretty much has everything stock like that you need. There's better plugins maybe and stuff, but I could never find a saturator. And I was like, "What?" And then now they're adding this like AI one and stuff. I'm curious to see what it does. I don't know if I put this one up from Smiling Errors. I apologize if I didn't. I meant to. And I kind of agree with this, and I'm curious to hear everybody's take. This update seems great for existing owners, but I don't see it showing off anything massive to move to it. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think the price is nice. The fact that it's still 200 and the fact that all of these updates are still coming for free. I mean, you could have bought Logic Pro X when it came out. I think X came out in what, 2014 or something like that?
Hmm.
And this is still free for that if you own that one. Like that I think is really cool.
Yeah. I'm sure there was a time when it was 140 as well.
You're probably right. I got it I think in 2013 or something with I want to say when I got it it was 9 and then it quickly became X or 10. But yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know if any of this is enough to move people. I think the fact that it has stem separation added, if it's really good quality, that could be something interesting for a certain niche or set community or something like that, for having a DAW. Yeah, I don't know if this is enough, but I wonder if any of these updates are really enough on their own to motivate someone to like get it. It's kind of just like added reasons to get it. Like I wouldn't buy Logic for these, but the fact that it has these and this and this might be like the reason. So I don't know, Eon, like what's your take on that?
I'm thinking that these are the sort of things it needs to have. I mean, it's with the AI musicians, so to speak, that's the direction they've been going in for quite some time now, and it's kind of logical that, no pun intended, I didn't mean that, sorry, but it is kind of logical that they just carry on the same vein, and AI is the next thing to really sort of fold into it. And saturator missing from a door. I mean, they would be missing, wouldn't it? I mean, I use them all the time. I love how they bring out harmonics more. So often that works better for me than distortion or EQ or audio exciters, oral exciters. So yeah, it's kind of like it feels like a maintenance release in the sense that they've beefed up some existing functionality. They've added something that perhaps was missing, and it's all good for existing users. And it makes it look less unappealing to anyone who doesn't already have it, if you see what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you 100%. It's kind of like the cherry on top if you're looking to get Logic, like, oh, and now it can do this. Awesome. Because previously, like if you wanted to do stem separation with pretty much any DAW, barring FL recently, I think, or something, like you had to have another thing to do the stem separation. So having kind of in the DAW of your choice, which I think we're going to see all of the DAWs add this type of stuff probably, or try to, it's just a one less thing to go out. Smiling Errors also adds, Curtis, I want to ask you in a second, but does anyone choose their DAWs because of the stock plugins? That's a good question. I mean, I don't think so, but to be fair, like I love the stock plugins in Logic. It's one reason I kind of stay with Logic, at least for like mastering and things like that. But I also still use Reason because of some of these synths that come with Reason, just knowing them. I think it comes to, if you know something inside and out, like you'll stick with it. But I don't know if you would choose it for the like without having used them before. It's more like once you've used it, you know it, so you stick with it. So that's a good question. Curtis, What's your thoughts on any of this? What we were talking previously with is it a reason to buy Logic?
No, it's not a reason to
Plugins,
buy
anything
Logic.
like that?
No, I don't think it's a reason to buy Logic. I think if you're going to buy Logic, you should be buying. You should like a bit like Smiling Ears. I don't think you should be buying a DAW because of the plugins. You should be buying a DAW because of workflow, and how workflow and how it processes sound in that regard. You can always buy. You can always get a free saturator plugin, and it's fine. I agree. I think for existing users, like I've got Logic Pro on my work computer. It's great. I can upgrade to it. It's going to be amazing, and that'll be really useful. But I don't think it's any reason to go out and buy Logic or anything like that. I think what gets me, and if I bring up the screen a little bit, if you could bring up the screen, just have a look at this language a little bit. Leveraging. This is again about the Chroma Glow. Leveraging AI and the power of M series Apple Silicon. Right.
Yeah, they say it in
Which
every
tells-
description on this release.
Yes. Now, that's not only do you have the notion of maybe it's only for M series chips, which is fine if that's what you want to do. That's great, But it tells me that it's going to be a heavy work. That's going to be heavy on the CPU. It's going to be a heavy upgrade. That's going if you don't have necessarily say it is for all Logic Pro users, which it should be anyway. But if it's not, if it's there and you can do it. Getting a non M chip or M series chip, that's going to really eat your CPU. So I wonder the usability
I have a
of it.
suspicion it's only for M.
Which is if that's the case,
But
then that's
the X still
incredibly...
exists for. I think you can probably still get X. I don't know, maybe, but if you already own X, you're not going to lose it with the older, what is it, Intel chips or whatever.
The Intel chips, yeah, which is interesting and fine, but also that's rather like we're bringing out this new stuff again. That makes it more of an interim thing because it's like we've got this new stuff, but you kind of have to have the M series chip in order to get it done, which is quite.
It is limiting, isn't it? And
limiting,
anybody that like Eon, like I don't think you have an M series, so it's like, can you even like?
Hell no.
Yeah, is this even worth it? Like this, what I'm on right now is not, but my laptop is, and my laptop's become my main. Like workhorse or whatever. But yeah, I can't get the update on this computer. If it is, I'm gonna Google it quickly. But Curtis, continue, or Ian, like if you have something to say.
I think it's there. I think it's nice to have. I think the stem separation is exciting. I think that's good. If you've got Logic, great, fine. I didn't realize that there wasn't a saturation plugin on Logic before now, and I think, well, that's a massive oversight. But yeah, it almost feels like, Ableton had an update, and then last week Reason had an update, FL Studios had an update, and it's almost like Apple are going, quick, what have we got? And put it out there. We'll call it an update, and then yeah, it's fine. We stay relevant. You know what I mean?
I hear you, but Logic's been putting out updates fairly consistently. It probably is reactionary in its timing, but I don't think this stuff was done in like a couple weeks. Maybe. I mean, it's not that much stuff they're adding, but the stem separation has probably been in the works for a while, I would suspect, but who knows? I'm still trying to find if it sounds like this stuff is only for the M chips. I'm just trying to look.
We'll have to do some investigation.
Yeah, we'll have
Perhaps,
to I'm on Reddit and seeing people commenting that like, oh, this is only so others are saying, oh, it does run on my Intel. So the only limits I'm seeing is that it says on the website, I think you still have it up, that it needs Ventura 13.5. That's the OS. So it doesn't say specifically here that it's only for M. So
I suppose it's more that the code supports the new chipset, and so you're not going to take the hit that other people are if you've got that chipset.
I would be very curious, to Curtis's point and somewhat to what you're saying, Ian, like I bet these are pretty decent running on the M chips, but how do these run on those older ones if it's workable?
I tell you what, I've got an older Mac there with an Intel chip i7. I've got access to Logic Pro. I'll put it in and I'll update it, and we'll have a look. Maybe I could be talking out of my underside here, but like not going. I could be talking out my underside, but it's worth testing. Like, I've got a Mac with an M1 that would probably work fine. But then
Yeah.
if we put it on this older one, we'll see, and it might just eat it all up. It might.
I
be
might
like,
put it on this one
stress-
because instead of that one, because that one I need for songs I'm finishing. And if there's, I was just gonna mention, sometimes there's bugs with new things, so I don't know
Yeah,
if I'll put it on
that's
that
true.
one because I have work I have to finish. But I'm gonna see if it, because this is a 2020. What is the spec? I gotta see. Intel Core i5. So we'll see. We'll see if it works on there. That could be very interesting. But we'll do the same song we did for the other stem splitters to see if all that stuff works. A couple of comments I want to read through. To Curtis's earlier point, FCC says, are all these DAW updates coming out on the back of such a huge update from Ableton? Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious. I thought I remember, because I saw Reason announce an update, but I swear they said recently we're sticking with 12 for a while, and then they just
No, it's
announced
last week.
13. Because I bought
last week
12
they
a
did,
couple of months ago, because I was like, oh, it sounds like they're sticking with 12 for a while, and then they just like soft announced 13 last week or something, and I was like, really? Okay, cool. And of course it's a paid one. A lot of these ones do those paid things, so that was a bit of a bummer. Yeah, Ableton put out a big one. Apple doesn't. I find it interesting that this is billed as 11 when it's not adding a whole ton. Like, I would love to see them update that clip launcher even more, because that's kind of just no, it doesn't surprise me. Like, I was setting this up to get to the point of what Smiling Errors was saying, is that they're pushing their products all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're always they always do that. What is it? The forced obsolescence or whatever. Like, things just age out when they shouldn't. You know, like I can't update, I believe, this computer, which is 2020. It's not that old, too. I think the most recent. I might be wrong, but one of my computers had, no, it was my 2015 or 16 laptop couldn't update to the most recent OS. And I was like, really, this thing is still super powerful, but you just can't update it. So they do that. So that's why I wasn't going to be surprised if this was like only for M chips or something. But the M chips are pretty new, so it would be very limiting to just say, no, 11's only for what, 2020 or 2021 computers and up. Because I mean, yeah, that would be very limiting. So it's very interesting to see, but they've done that before. Remember when their MacBook Pro removed all USB ports and stuff but one, and it's a Pro? Yeah, Apple, man. Eon, like, final thoughts.
I think that covers it, really. It does feel a little bit meh, but at the same time, I think, you get updates and you get updates. Sometimes they've got some big features to bring in, and sometimes it's just updates.
I read further down. Curtis, do you still have that link up?
Yeah, hang on.
Go down to
over here.
Go past share article, and under About Apple, M Series Apple is recommended when using session players on iPad. M Series Apple is required when using Stem Splitter on iPad and Mac. And M Series is recommended when using Chroma Glow on iPad. It's required when using Chroma Glow on Mac. So
that's just. Go. There you go. All right, so it might be a free update, but you have to buy a new MacBook in order to use it.
Yeah. Yeah, that seems a bit quite a bit limiting. And I love how that's put way down at the bottom.
Yeah.
It's not even, I don't even see in the pricing and availability, they don't have little numbers to be like, oh, look down to find, additional stuff. Like no, it's just hidden way down there, and there it is. But yeah, I wanted to look and I see that. So yeah, that seems really limiting.
But it's Apple. It's Apple. But yeah.
I mean, I like that it's free. It works for me because as long as it's bug free, I'm gonna get it because I have an M. But like, there's a lot of people, and like my computer right here, that just isn't gonna be able to use any of that stuff. So I'm very excited that they've added stem separation, that they've furthered the session players. I find it odd. Are the session players okay? The session players aren't required for the M series, but everything else is. So I'm glad the session players aren't. But yeah, it seems very limiting.
Seems very limiting. I'm glad for the new features, and I'm also glad for our patrons and the fact that we are here. We're not sponsored.
Yeah, I
We
had to
don't
laugh
take
at you.
ads or anything like that.
That's smooth,
Uh,
man.
that's smooth. Trying to hedge in that segue. Yes, no, thank you. The show is brought to us by our patrons. There's a lot of you here today, and thank you ever so much for joining us and spending your time, your Wednesday evening, your Wednesday morning, your Wednesday afternoon, whatever it happens to be. Thank you. We really appreciate you. It is because of you that we get to do this show week in and week out, and we find the news and we bring it together and we sit and we chat and we release music out on Audionaut Records, and we do that because of you. So thank you ever so much. If you like what we do and you tune in each week, you don't have to give us anything. Your time and your energy is everything. It's wonderful. But if you wanted to show your support, you can head over to patreon.com/audionautic. Pledges start as little as $2 a month, and for that you get to come and you hang out with our Star Stream, which is our patron only hangout once a month. It's great fun. And as you go up the tiers, more things are made available to you. Early access to releases, free stuff like sample packs and download codes, and even more as you go further up the way. What else? What am I missing, Sam Whopper?
Yeah, you can also come on the show. So if you want to express your opinion on Apple and what they're doing with Logic, whether it's a good or bad thing or whatever, you're welcome to come on the show. We post every week in our Discord channel that's exclusive for patrons. I almost said channel members. I got two different, juggling all those different things. But yeah, we have a Discord channel that's exclusive to our patrons. The Discord is open for all, but we have a channel on there where we talk about all this kind of stuff. And we're talking gear all day, every day over on that. Anything you can bring up questions. If you have questions for us or want us to cover something, that's the place to go. It's a great place where we talk. But yes, you can also come on the show, voice your opinion, and hang out with us.
Yeah, very much so. Our next StreamYard. When is next StreamYard? That's another thing. What do I mean? That is the thing we're trying to get to at the moment. Our next Star Stream is on the 19th this month. We usually do it on the last Sunday of every month. This week we're doing it a week early because you guys have Memorial Day? Is that what it is? Over there on that side of the Atlantic.
Dude, I have no semblance of time right now, so I'm not the person to ask. And I was like, Eon wouldn't know because he's not in America, so I don't know.
I think you're right though, for what it's worth.
Yeah, I don't even know what day it is right now, honestly. I've had like 2 hours of sleep in the last 3 days, so
we got you. But it's the notion of hanging out before Memorial Day, before everyone goes off and starts their holiday. We're chatting, shooting the stuff, and it's really interesting because we'll get to it later. The round robin today is a direct response to the conversations that we were having in our last Star Stream, which is really nice, and it becomes this organic notion where we share ideas and we kind of come together, help each other out, solve issues together as a group, as a team, as a collective. And I love it for that. I loved how, Hydrofighter had his doorless setup issues and we were all just sharing links going, hey, try this, hey, try that,
nothing like talking about mixers for 30 minutes.
Mixes and like headphone splitters
and patch
like
phase.
Patch phase. And it's just it's so much fun and it's so good to have everyone there, and there's such a nice vibe of helping each other out. I love it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that 19th. So if you want to be a part of that, come down and make a pledge, become a patron. It's a great community. I love it. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's awesome. And all of your support helps us do this every week, and also have things like we're able to do StreamYard, which is what we stream from, where I can do things like zoom in on Eon Lake when he's staring down, or
Right.
go over to me so that I can talk, or we can do this split, or we can do this one. We can share the screen and all that type of stuff. So we're about due to re-up for StreamYard. So if you want to help support the show, head to patreon.com/audionautic and join. You get all of that stuff, and it helps us do all of this. And your support means the world because we love hanging out with you all week in and week out and talking this kind of stuff. And that's what we love to do. So yeah.
Very much. On that note, can we just mention the fact that FCC loved the transition? I think that's cool.
What an ego you got, man.
That is good.
I've been losing faith in my ability to transition from piece to piece.
If you would like to validate Curtis, please feel free to comment.
Yes, he needs that external validation.
Yeah,
Give it.
I'm
Give
proud
it.
of you, dude.
There we go. So yeah, on it as well. This is part of the community corner.
I was going to say, speaking of external validation, we have a Discord challenge. We have a Discord challenge where this May 15th, which I think is this coming Wednesday, we've got our next Discord challenge. It's in the community corner, but it's genre Gambit is the challenge. And it's a pretty simple rule. Make a track outside of your usual genre and then just submit it in the Genre Gambit Discord channel. Our Discord is open for all. It's a positive space on the internet where we talk about music production, all this stuff that when you tell somebody in person, their eyes just glaze over about LFOs and envelope followers. But here we know what you're talking about. But this challenge, our first one was last month, and we had a ton of fun doing it. We listened through. We meet an hour before ADSN on our Discord on the voice hangout channel, and we just listen through everybody's, and everybody gives some commentary, on what we liked and what we did. I'm currently working, and I don't have much time, so it's going to be a rough demo, but an industrial metal track with my Jazz Master. Where is it? Back there. That's in drop A, and I think I'm going to stick with that bass line. That's just a repitched, just one string on the Jazz Master because it just sounds so nasty. I love it. But yeah, that's what we'll be doing. Curtis, have you figured out your track?
Yeah, I've been dabbling with bootlegs, and I want to make more bootlegs, ones that are specifically tracks that you can't make money on. And I've been having some fun with the stems for George Ezra's Budapest, because I went to Budapest last week, and when I went to Budapest, I made a song and I remixed it and turned it into something different. And yeah, I've been enjoying that. So I think I'm gonna finish that one off.
Nice.
After I've got to finish your remix tonight. And that's the deadline for that, and then I'll finish that off.
There you go. Yeah, I've been working with stem separation. The next video I'm doing, I split vinyl and I use some vocals from a vinyl track, and that was a lot of fun. It's like more of that looping vocal where it's just kind of repeating like as it builds up and stuff. But yeah, it was interesting. Ian, like, have you figured out a track you're gonna do? Because you missed the last one, so you get one. Well, I guess you get 2 strikes left.
Nah, I haven't. I was going to do something really, really noisy and aggressive and proto techno, and I know what sounds I will use to do it. But I've got this remix thing that I've got to get knocked out, and this
I'll tell you what. Take a sample from the remix.
What I'll do if you don't get it done in time, it'll go nuts or something. It's one of those sorts you get in the music industry.
Yeah, he's a jerk. I know. Take a sample from it. And turn it into noise, because that's a pleasant song. I want to hear some harsh noise from it. That's all you got to do. Yeah. But yeah, we're looking forward to hearing everybody's tracks. We'll be meeting at 10 a.m. Pacific. Oh boy, is that 6 p.m. UTC?
No, it's yes. Sorry,
6 p.m. UTC. It's 7 p.m. for Curtis. Yeah, but 6 p.m. UTC. So we'll be meeting there on our Discord. The Discord link should be in the description. If it's not, it will be in there after we end the show, and it will be in the show notes for Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other podcast platforms. If you are listening or watching on there, welcome. Great to see you. If you'd be so kind as to leave a review, it helps a ton. If you're watching on YouTube live or back and you get some value out of this episode, leave a like, comment after. It helps a ton. We're always trying to reach new eyes and ears. The deadline, Thomas, is this coming Wednesday. So we're doing one every month. We make sure to mention it every episode that we're doing a challenge every month. So if you can't make this one, don't worry about it. We'll have the next one. But yeah, it's this Wednesday. So it doesn't have to be a finished track. It can be a demo. Mine's probably going to be 45 seconds because I just don't have time right now. But just make a song outside of your normal genre. So if you do ambient, do something completely different. Also, just wanted to say hello, Thomas. He's coming in. Always happy to see you here. Anything else on the genre Gambit? I know Eon Lake is going to work really hard to get something done.
I just want to stipulate it's a bit of fun. Like we're not taking it too seriously. It's just about throwing shoes together. Yeah,
it's all about just what these challenges are meant to do is get us out of our comfort zones and get us creating. Like I said, it does not need to be done. It doesn't have to be It can be a rough demo. It's fine. My last one was like completely unmixed. It was just this really long form kind of ambient experiment, and just get creating, get outside of your comfort zones and see kind of what it does. Because I mean, I guess it's peer pressure, but the point is to just kind of like push ourselves to get things done, get through things, to finish things, get through that last 10%, Curtis.
I see where you're going with this.
Yes, yes. Carry on, my friend.
Yeah, getting through the last 10%, that is the most difficult part of it. Apparently, according to the community when we were having our star stream 2 weeks ago now, and yeah, it was really interesting to me, and that's what brought it up. This notion of, we were talking about finishing tracks and adding the last pieces, the ear candy, or adding the effects or whatever, and everyone seemed to have a consensus that that was the most difficult part, the most
Yeah, and I think,
elongated part.
just to be fair, Thomas brought this, I think, in the star stream. I
Yes.
think Thomas is the one that mentioned it. So kudos
Yeah.
to Thomas for bringing this topic.
Yeah, very much. Thank you for that. Really appreciate that. And it was really, I was watching it and I was fascinated by the notion that everyone seemed to have a consensus on it. And I wanted to explore that a little bit more. I wanted to explore, firstly, the reasons, or why the individual reasons about why people struggle, what they struggle with specifically in the last 10%, be it the mix, or be it the effects, or be it the ear candy, or whatever. And I wanted us to share in the notion of finding solutions together in that regard, because I think it's the first time, maybe I could be wrong, that we've all had a consensus over an issue in that regard, and then talking about why, and then I want to find out why. So hopefully that we can speed up that process and be less anxious and less worried about that process, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. How do you want to start,
Yeah.
Curtis?
Well, I'd like to start with, I mean, I can start if you want me to. I'd like to hear from you guys first and foremost. Maybe while that will give people in the chat an idea and start to formulate if they've got anything that they wish to share, so that we can kind of throw this around. So yeah, does anyone in particular have a burning desire to start or share their experiences at all? Or shall I go, seeing as I brought this to the table via Thomas, obviously?
Let's see what
You kick
Eon Lake's
us off.
thinking.
I think Thomas has hit it a little bit though with the whoever masters the last 10% will rule the world.
He said that on the star stream too, and I love that because he's spot on, I think. But yeah, Curtis, why don't you start and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, go on.
Well, okay, so for me, the last 10% is usually the adding of things like the effects and the transitions and the ear candy. Essentially, that's what is for me. That's why I've been using these examples in the introduction, because that's kind of part of my own myopic existence. We create a track, and sometimes it can last a week to create, sometimes it could be a month, sometimes it can be 2 months, etc. But usually, at least in my workflow, the ear candy, the crashes, the sweeps, the rises, etc., tend to be built as an addition to that. They tend to go, okay, this is the song. Oh, now I need to add the effects of the sweeps. And so I have a hard time, fixating on making it sound organic, in inverted commas, where the crashes and the cymbals might sound similar to those of the drum kit that's being used, whether it be a synth wave or whether it be an organic drum kit or something like that. Not only that, but also when it comes to the risers and when it comes to the sweeps and stuff like that, making them sound different. Because it's one thing to have transition, it's one thing to have risers and it's one thing to have sweeps, but then to have them differently sounding throughout each track, especially if you've got something like an EP or something like that, that's another thing, because it's very easy to just go, oh, that's a riser, that's a sweep, that kind of thing. So I start hyperfixating on, okay, how can I affect it, or how can I pitch shift it, or what can I change it to make it sound, oh, that sounds similar to the track that I made yesterday, for example. So these things are where I tend to struggle, and that's when I start hyperfixating, and that's when my imposter syndrome kicks in. I'm going, people will know, you know what I mean? And not necessarily they would, but yeah, that's where I'm at.
Interesting. I want to share this before we carry on, because I think Ross has a really good point in the chat. The last 10% seems like it's geared around the parts we individually find hard. I bet we all whiz through the bits we are strong at. because you were just mentioning imposter syndrome and things like that, and I get that because that's like your sticking point. And I was gonna say, I think we talked about this at the beginning, but 10% is a bit arbitrary in its own right because we don't really know what the last 10% of a song is until we're done with the song. And yeah, I mean, we have a general idea, like, yeah, it's the final bit, but like it's kind of a subjective idea of like what is it for each person. So yeah, I think it's good to talk about this because we all struggle with certain parts. So it's also good to hear that we're not alone in those struggles or in those woes. Jan, like, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on your workflow a bit, really, doesn't it? One of the things I like least about the closing stages of a track is I tend to multiplex my tracks when I'm writing them. So I flip between them. So I don't sort of get bored, because whenever I've done a bit and I think I'm going a bit stale, I'll just change it up and do another one. So that kind of slows down a bit when I get towards the end. I don't chop and change them quite so much because it becomes a bit of a false economy. I need to kind of just finish the one that I've got up. And I find also the momentum seems to slow down a bit. It seems intrinsic that the closing stages seem to be more about detail and less about, inspiration and creation and flow state, and more about tweaking and nibbling and taking little bits out and putting little bits in and, being thorough and having an attention to detail, which I don't know, I just don't think it's quite as much fun as the earlier stages where it's more about creating and vibing and, exploring and so on. And I wonder sometimes if that is just a psychological thing. Is that just how you're thinking about it? Maybe you should see it more as a honing, perfecting, making more beautiful. I don't know, like a craftsman and wood or something, But yeah, I think sometimes it's a bit of a momentum thing that it's hard to maintain it right to the very end, especially when the activities that you're involved in are a lot more piecemeal and bitty in nature. It kind of has the aspect of killing your progress a bit. But I also think that, it's easy to turn it into a process. And I think all of us sort of operate lists to a certain degree and just chip away at those. So in a way, it kind of gets easier as well, because it's really just like, well, what did you hear on the last listen that needs to be addressed or corrected or whatever? How many more things are there on the list? And then when the list is done, it's done, I think it's natural to sort of relate to it more, get really sort of drawn into it and lose your focus a little bit towards the end, because you want it to be perfect and all the rest of it, and you just, I don't know, you need to back off and stop interfering with music,
Yeah.
Let it happen, get it right, but don't go to the dark place.
Don't go to the dark place. It's almost like it becomes formulaic in that regard, as opposed to like flow state and creative. It becomes kind of like, putting the cherry on the cake, for example, is fun and nice and finishes it off, but it's also like just putting a cherry on the top. It's not exactly like mixing and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, mixing is one of the few things I do enjoy about the closing stages. Although I don't really do a lot of mixing per se, unless it's sort of like differential fades are things that I'm quite fond of, where some things drop out and other things don't, and so on. I like doing things like that, things that are creative, things that make the track seem a bit more like I always imagined it, But yeah, I don't know. I think you do just slow down a bit towards the end, and it's I think it's intrinsic to what you're doing. Really, you have to pay a little bit of attention at the end just to make sure you didn't miss anything before you move on to the next one.
I like that. It's a very good point. It's a very interesting point. The chat has been alive somewhat. But is there anything you want to say in regards to Audionaut, or do you want to go through the chat and then move on to yours?
I actually want to go to the chat after because I think we should Well, I'll explain after, but let me just share my thing, and then we'll
Yeah.
go to the chat. And chat, please continue because we'll share them all in a moment. So I agree that the last 10%, 20% even is typically the hardest. It used to be for me, but I actually really enjoy that final phase because I enjoy hearing it, the culmination of all the effort and things like that. I actually find personally my sticking point now, and I think it's just from my sleep deprivation and just like general malaise of not being able to get in the studio and things like that, is actually like right after the creating a loop part. It's like figuring out the sequencing and things like that, because once I get the sequence where I want it, like my imposter syndrome pops up where I start overthinking the sequencing and the track, like building the structure of the track, and then after that I'm like, oh, I'm mixing and then I'm mastering and I'm done. But previously it was a lot more of that, getting all the doubt creeping in as you near that finish line, right? Like, is the song even worth it and all that? Because I would always take too long on a track and lose my objectivity around it because I was just like so into the track that all I would hear is like, well, now the bass is too loud. Then I'd lower the bass. And then because the bass got lowered, it changes the dynamics of the track. Oh, now the hi-hat's too loud. And then I go from there. So the reason I wanted to read the comments after going through that is because Thomas has a point that I think is somewhat similar to that. And I wanted to bring that up, is that losing the objectivity when you're in a track too long. He says, my issue is that the closer I get to finishing the track, the more I start to doubt if I actually like it. I start to doubt my work, and then I start to change things, get too much into the details. So I was like that a lot. And I'm not saying like I've figured it all out or anything, but I get a lot of tracks out and I enjoy what I make, because what I've learned to do is to finish faster and just bypass the doubt, like not get to that point.
You don't think about it.
It's partly why I like to turn MIDI into audio, or just work in DAWless as long as I can until the finish line, because then I can't change things typically. And then I've been working on trying to let go of the idea of perfection. It doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to be impeccable. It needs to be excellent. But there's no idea of perfection, because my idea of what the perfect drum mix is, and where everything is balanced, is probably going to be different from Eon Lake or from Curtis or something like that. And then lastly, on the idea of like letting a track go, I just wanted to mention, like, I would much rather nowadays, what I've discovered is finish a track and move on, learning from what I didn't enjoy about it, but knowing that I did it, because if I don't finish, I reinforce the idea of me that I can just stop finishing tracks and then I'll never finish. So if I just finish it and release it, or do something with it, flip it as a sample for a YouTube video or something, like it at least got done and I did something with it. So that's why I wanted to talk about it in that way. There's a lot more chat I can get through, but if Ian, like, do you have anything you want to add?
Kind of very similar. I mean, it's definitely something that I relate to a lot, and I used to do a lot more of myself. I think I came to understand over time that if I had a good enough idea and I didn't kill it stone dead by working on it too much or being too uptight or perfectionist about it, and got it finished in relatively short order, it would eventually be something that I like. Once it's something that's finished, I find my mental attitude to it changes quite a lot anyway, especially if it's been finished for a couple of weeks or a month or something like that. And then when you listen to it, it doesn't matter anymore. It is what it is, and you either like it or you don't. And I find I generally do, unless I don't follow my own advice or my own instincts or do all the things that I've learned. I generally kind of like what I write, because why would I write something I don't? I'll just stop, I think. So, yeah, I think I kind of learned to trust in it a little bit. And I kind of think Thomas probably will as well, really. If I think you just finish stuff and then you listen to it, and if you gave yourself to it and didn't get in your own way, then you probably will like it, and you don't really need to worry. But it is the one point of the process where you will least be able to say whether or not you do like it or whether or not it has any value. And to be honest, once you release something and it's out into the world, then this value judgment is something that everyone else is going to be making, not you. So it is what it is, and people make of it what they are. Your job is just to get it done and get it out there.
Yeah. Yeah, you're spot on though, because I know there's albums or tracks I've released where when I released it, I was so unsure of, oh, this sound in the mix or this part in the track. And I listened back and I totally forgot that I had this existential crisis around it, or that it took 15 masters to, get where I was happy with it at first. And now I wouldn't notice that whatsoever. Curtis, we got a lot of chat. Do you have anything you want to add before I continue?
No, I think I can add any more that the audience themselves are not adding themselves. Let's go through some really insightful stuff in there.
I thought since you were so chatty, you had something to say.
I can rein it in when I need to.
All right. I'm proud of you. I'm just teasing you, man. Smiling Error says, although I chuck away most of what I make, the bits that stick probably didn't take long, but without all the wasted time creating ideas has to be part of the process for me. Let's see where else we've got. Thomas says, making a collab or rework with the deadline can sometimes help skip the part where I am too hard on myself and my work because it's not 100% only me. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I find even just setting deadlines for myself helps me because, like, oh, I know this has to be out, or this, like, just with Audionaut when we're doing record stuff, it's like, well, this is due for this time, so it's got to be done. Or when it comes to YouTube, so yeah, deadlines in general can be a powerful tool, but you're right, with the collab, there's someone else that you owe something to. So yeah, spot on. FCC says, I can throw a track together in an evening, but take weeks listening as I go to sleep and then make changes, mostly taking lots of things out. Yeah, that's true. I mean, there's a fine line, right? Because if you do it too much, you start getting lost in it, and you just keep removing. But it's like I think you're right. Like, removing parts is key, because if something doesn't need to be, I think you've even said this, FCC, maybe when you were on the show last, but if something doesn't need to be there, like you're listening and it fits without it, then why have it there, right? And that is a good way to do it for sure. Let's see where else we've got. Asef says, imposter syndrome is so odd, it comes and goes.
Yeah.
This one from Ross is interesting too, because this is kind of like where I'm at, what I was talking about, my kind of current sticking point, not quite the blank page, but like right between the blank page and the kind of like getting near the finish line. But they say, if I think about it, when we are starting, there's a blank page pressure, but after that, it's a don't mess this up pressure when it gets closer to being complete.
Yes.
Yeah.
Judgment is coming pressure.
Yeah, and I think it's important. That's kind of what I was saying with the finished tracks faster, because you kind of don't get to that point, or at least you're not in it too long. Because I find when I'm stuck in that idea of like, I don't want to mess it up, I just start overthinking every single piece of the mix. And so my way of working around that was just like, don't get to that point, get past it. Thomas says, Sunwarper, that is spot on about something earlier. Smiling Era says, I get stressed when 3/4 of it is a high standard or is at a high standard, but I know a quarter of it drops. I'd rather bin it than let it out like that. That's interesting, because it's kind of what you were saying, Eon, like about the judgment. It's like we think that part might be bad, but it might be someone's favorite part. I don't know. But then again, if it's your music, you should feel like good enough. It's interesting.
I think we're introducing the critic a bit too soon, really. There, I mean, whether or not you want to release it's irrelevant. You want to finish it because you want to have the practice at finishing and having done the final stages as much as the initial stages. So, you don't need to have an opinion on it. You can just finish it, chuck it in a folder, don't listen to it for a month, and then maybe listen to it, and then maybe have an opinion about it then. But you don't need to have an opinion about it. I think you go too far with that. You might need to have an opinion about the balance in the mix or something like that. But it's very easy to get too drawn into that and end up getting drawn into quality judgments about, the music itself. And it's just not the time for it. You're not equipped. You're not in the best place to do it.
Yeah, I mean, to that too, like I find finishing the crap tracks is actually a learning lesson for the tracks I really enjoy, because even if I didn't enjoy the track or even if I don't release it, I learned something from it that I can then put in. Like maybe I did some really interesting transition effect. Well, now I can put that in a song I'm really amped up about, but I learned it by getting through that track that I didn't care for or something.
And I think best of all, you have a lot of practice about not getting hung up on things, just not getting hung up on it lots of times over and over, and just finishing tracks regularly is more valuable than anything, really.
I really love this from FCC. Curtis, let me just read this and then I want to hear from you. When people are listening, no one cares about the finer details. It's all about the feel, the moment. We do get bogged down in the detail as artists, because he's spot on. Because a lot of those parts we think are the most important aspect or something, no one's going to notice. Curtis.
Yeah. Well, to that effect, it's again, it's like a make it sound good, dude, kind of thing. No one is as interested in your work. There you go. There we go. No one's interested really in your work as much as you are, and to think that you important to you as it is to everyone else is somewhat myopic in that regard. Which I think is a very useful phrase. I do think that there is actually a credence to be had in getting bogged down in something. Like, I noticed when I was doing Intervoidal, and I mean that's 12 tracks, and I was making it in a certain way. I knew by the end of it, it became very formulaic, and it became very bang done, bang done, bang done, for example. And I lost the love of that. I think there is something to be said for getting bogged down in a track every so often, not all the time, just to remind yourself that you do care. And there is something that you care about in that regard, and finding your way through and going, as Asef Stripes says, imposter syndrome comes and goes, allowing the creative flow to come and go. And I think in that regard, allowing, seeing that you're getting bogged down with something, and say, for example, a quarter of it is dropping, to borrow Smiling Arrows' comment, allowing yourself to sit with that and going, okay, where is it? Why is it I'm unhappy with it in this case? And working with that can be really useful to kind of see where you're at in your own creative journey. Does that make any sense?
No, you got to have the good to have the bad, have the bad to have the good, have weakness to have strength. So I think it's good to have all these kinds of experiences so that, and even if for nothing else, then in the future, you can know when you're getting bogged down and you can kind of be like, oh, okay, I am getting lost in the details right now. I am curious, though, to hear from everybody, because we've talked about this before. I find I'm not searching for external validation in my music creation, but I found my most successful tracks have been ones that I've spent the least amount of time on. And I think it's because I'm in the flow state and just get it done. And it's a true expression of myself. So I'm curious for everybody in the chat to hear if you've ever found that similar. And actually going through some of the comments, it seems like Thomas might say something similar. There's a lot of comments before that. We got to wrap up soon, so we'll have to run through what the patrons are saying. But let me read this from Thomas. Here's a funny story. I spent 2 hours creating a filler track for a collab album 2 years ago just to make it a 4-track EP. Surprisingly, it became my most streamed track ever. Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying. Yeah, there's something to be said about that, not getting bogged down. I'm not trying to argue with you, Curtis. You are spot on. You have to have all of these experiences and things, but there is also something to be said when you can just kind of get in that flow and then get it out. It usually is, I could think it's a truer expression of who you were in the moment, but your art in that moment. So yeah. All right, let me read through what the patrons got, because we got to end pretty soon. FCC says, when people are listening, no one cares about the finer details. It's all about the feel, the moment. Oh, no, I read that one. I'm sorry. I apologize. This one from Thomas. I consider releasing an album named Work in Progress and then just name all the tracks something like version 1, version 2. That would be nice. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of something I did with like Future Fade and stuff, because I was releasing every month. So if I had to, I could go back and kind of change the release. It was like my little cheat code for getting into this kind of positioning or this workflow. Bendu says, for me, the mixing is the hard part. It's technical and makes me doubt my ears. Older tracks always sounds like the mix could have been better to me. I mean, that also means we're learning, right? So that's kind of cool too, in a way that if we can hear those old tracks and be like, oh, I could have fixed that. It's like, oh, I know more than I did then.
I never got that from a Bendu release.
Yeah, I've never either, but we're all our worst critics. Like yeah, we're our worst critics. So I get that. FCC says, I felt the pressure more doing a remix. It's been through so many versions because I wanted to make sure I did the original justice, but it might just be the better for it. Yeah. I mean, I always find the best remixes are the ones that just do their own thing, like take a track and just go in a completely different direction. I love that, but there's so many ways to do a remix. There's no right or wrong way. Thomas says, I actually didn't like the track at all, but afterwards I can kind of see why the track works because I didn't overthink it. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. It's this creative flow state, isn't it, at the end of the day?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, most definitely. We'd be keen to know what you guys think. What listening back on Spotify, Apple Music, or even watching this on YouTube, add a comment. We'd love to know where you struggle with these things and what it is you do to overcome them, if you overcome them. This is all about community, and this is all the whole point of this section of the show is for us to share and vocalize where we're at so that we can perhaps comment and help each other through. If you want to, our Discord is ready and raving these days, and we have a link in the channel in the description box, and I will also put it in the chat towards the end of the show. Come down to the Discord; it's great fun. We continue these kinds of discussions throughout the entire thing, and yeah, it'd be great to see you because it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. And
yeah,
we'll be back next week, Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. UTC, 8 p.m. for Curtis. I just have to include it, so we're all good because I know the times now. I think until the times are changed. Smiling Air says the Discord is great. Thank you, my friend. Yeah, we love having you. You put all those awesome samples in the sample swapsies channel that are fun. I always want to just take them all and start flipping them, but I don't have time to do much of anything. But yeah, there's lots of really cool samples we're putting up on there and things like that. And then we also, while we have our misgivings, whatever have you, with Spotify, we do have a playlist for independent artists like ourselves and all of you. So if you have music that you want to get on there, we're getting close to 600 followers, likes, whatever it is nowadays on Spotify. But if you want to get your music on there, you can submit it in the Discord, or you can send it over to my socials at Sunwarper or at Audionautic, and we'll take a listen and see if it fits. We appreciate everybody hanging out. And the last little segment before we go, what are we up to? Ian, like, what are you up to this week?
Remix. Remix. But also, you know, the same thing I said last time, and that was a while ago. Just there are some experiments. I'm always lining up experiments, and generally, a bit like Curtis at the moment, away from the studio, set up a bit over here, focusing in on a couple of bits of kit and trying some quirky stuff, and then some of it in software on the laptop, and then some of it on the modular. Just, you know, refreshing a few things that I haven't done for a while. And yeah, I had a list of things. I haven't been through them all yet, so I'm still going through them. And that's how I like to fill the time anyway. Build a list, work through it.
And there you go, whiteboard, right? Curtis, what about you?
I've got some artwork to finish. We've got another release coming out, Audionaut Records. I am late on that, so I need to finish that off. I'm going to be finishing your remix. That's what I'll be doing straight after the show, just hunking down. I am in that last 10%, and I am doing that, and I am doing those stuff, and I'm kind of get through it. And then hopefully by the end of the night, I can go Sunwarper. There you go. Have at it. And I'll see you next Tuesday. But apart from that, bit of artwork, bit of this. I want to use the sketch station. It's there, it's set up, and it's good. And I installed it and put.
I love how we all have alliteration for these. I got MIDI Mountain Sketch Station.
Yeah, it's great. And I haven't used it. Yeah, it's the one. It's there. I got a brand new MacBook for it, and I installed it and I've been away and I've been busy and I haven't had a chance. So I really want to just take myself away from this space here and put myself in that space and get quite literally and figuratively a different perspective, because this table is sitting this way facing the wall, that way it's there facing the rest of the studio, rest of the bedroom. So yeah, that's what I want to do. How about you, brother? What are you up to?
So I've got this. Well, first of all, I got to master all these remixes that are coming in. So that'll be fun. Because everybody's a buzzer beat this time and sending them late. No, it's not even late yet. There's still 2 days, I think, for the deadline. But so I'll be doing that. But I'm trying to find some time because I've got this album concept in mind that I'm working on, and I'm trying to find time A, to write the songs, but B, I want to do vocals. And I'm thinking I've got one song that's written in the sequence, and then I've got lyrics, but I haven't done the scratch vocals yet for it. But I kind of want to do like almost a vocal album, like of 10 tracks, let's say like 5 to 6 have vocals on them, and not like repeated vocals, but like lyrics. So that's kind of what I'm messing with beyond all my like filming things and doing the vinyl stems and stuff like that. So that's what I want to do. I'm trying to find the time to get that done, and there's just not a lot of time. But yes, this concept I'm working on. So even if I can't work on the vocals, I'm trying to just kind of create the tracks and the idea of it. I have like this concept for it, and then it's just kind of figuring out how I want to go about it. Yeah.
That's cool. That sounds really fun. That sounds really good. I'd
Yeah,
like
if
to
there's
see a
time.
Stumble for Singing album.
Say again, Curtis. Sorry, I didn't hear you.
I'd like to see a Stumble for Singing album.
Yeah, I did. I've done like one-off tracks, but I really kind of want to do like a story. And we talked with Jonathan Good last week about story and story through music, not really having a set story for the listener, but that they can create. But I'm kind of, and that's always what I've done, but I'm kind of toying with the idea of like using lyrics to see what it does, like telling a story and how is it kind of taken in by the listener and all that. But it's just kind of something like there's a story I want to tell, and I think vocals are needed to do it. And I've just missed doing singing in my music and stuff. And then I almost feel the imposter syndrome of like, how do I add vocals into these structures and things? And so I kind of like the idea of like, this is something I'm nervous about. This is something I feel like I'm not standing on like stable ground with. Like I'm anxious, my imposter syndrome is coming. So I want to approach that. I want to see what happens with it.
That sounds really good. Yeah, that's what you need to do. That's what you really good.
As if I need another project, but you know what
that's fine.
Whatever.
I've got catalogs and folders of unfinished projects on my hard drive, and we'll get there. You know, step by step, as they say. Yeah. You can't eat an elephant all at once, piece by piece.
Fair enough.
It's been great. It's wonderful to have such everyone here, and you know we're an hour and 23 minutes in, and there's a load of you here. And thank you ever so much for taking the time to be with us on this Wednesday, wherever you are in the world, and watching back if you're still here. So happy that you guys are vibing with what we've brought to the table this week. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's always great to see you all here, and we love hearing from all of you. If you do want to help us grow or just help the show, obviously just being here is more than enough. But if you want to leave a comment after the video ends, leave a like and just share the video, share what's going on, share the Discord or whatever. It all helps. By no means do you have to do it, but if you do feel like you want to help or something, it means a ton. But just having you all here and talking week in and week out about all this stuff is awesome. I just want to share a couple of comments before we go. Thomas says, glad I managed to catch the last part of the show. You guys rock. You rock, Thomas. We're always happy to have you here. We love talking with you on Starstream. I always appreciate hearing your take on Spotify and stuff, because you bring a very different perspective than what a lot of us feel and things like that. And it's always great to hear these differing opinions on this type of stuff, because that's how we kind of grow and realize there's like other perspectives and things. FCC says, great show. Lovely to be back in the chat. Missed you guys. Yeah, we missed you too, FCC. It's been a minute. I've been listening to your last EP lately. I just love the ambient tones and all that. It's great. Thomas also says that he's rearranging the home studio. Good luck with that. That's awesome. Good luck with that.
Yeah, with the record collection, that is.
And I do want to clarify, because Thomas did send me his remix quite a while ago. So he did say, you got mine a long time ago. Yes, I did. Yeah. I got I think 4 of the 10 or 12 back pretty quick. So yeah, and I'm not it's all good. Like, we have a deadline just for getting it up on streaming and stuff, but it's gonna be good. Anyways, with that, I think, well, FCC says right, off to finish a remix. I know the 2 that are here have remixes they have to finish. Thomas says, oh yeah, smash that like button. Thanks, Thomas, appreciate it. But we'll be back next week. If you can't wait that long, Discord is always open. The link is in the description. We'll see you over there. As I pull up the little ending, I'm just stalling for time, but thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.